right,
Hi.
today we are going to talk about making that transition from being a real estate agent to actually being a real estate business owner. For some people, this happens when they first start in real estate, and for other people, they never really make that transition. And if you want a consistent, profitable business that gives you freedom, flexibility, and financial abundance, you have no choice. You have to make this transition from being an agent to a real estate business owner. And they don't teach this to you in real estate school. Your sales coach isn't talking about this, and certainly your broker likely isn't. So you don't really get a chance to learn some of these skills. So I wanted to bring on Jolene McDonough today. She is the president and founder of System Success, and her company helps other companies put foundational systems in place that help them increase profits and scale their business. And before she started Success Systems, she was the president and founder, she was the co-owner and COO of a Prudential California Realty office and various other real estate entities as well. So she has a lot of experience both on the ground as somebody who is running a real estate company and also as a consultant, helping people put these systems in place that help them scale and build their real estate business. So Jolene, I am so happy to have you here today. I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite topics. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored. Thanks.
So let's just talk about what you experienced and you saw when you were the COO of that real estate brokerage firm that led you to the work that you do today. Why did you feel like people need this help?
Oh my gosh. Well, I will always be grateful for that time that I had with my company. We had the large company. We grew from, when I started with the company, it was 35 agents. We did about $1.5 million GCI, and I got kind of thrown into the deep end. Like, okay, here you go. You're part of the family. You're now going to help run this company. And I had my experience with banking and working at the regional office of Century 21, but I had no idea how to run a company. And through the years, through the 17, 18 years, we grew it. And when I left, we had close to 350 agents, 4 offices, a lot of tenant improvements we've done. A lot of agents had come through the office. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from the people in the company. I learned a lot from the businesses that we collaborated with. And I also learned how to break a lot of systems, because as we grew and we contracted and grew some more and contracted, because we did go through several downturns. I mean, there were several downturns, including 9/11, which, that was probably the worst. That was the hardest one. But we broke a lot of the systems, and it was my job in the background to build the systems, build the office, build the structure so that, we could pile the production on and it wouldn't break. But we broke things because, you can't drive a Ferrari on bicycle wheels. You just can't. So even expanding from 1 office to 2 offices to 3 offices to 4 offices, there's so many different dynamics that happen in communication, hiring people, legal, risk. I mean, even the risk factor of it was, we broke a lot of that. So, and we learned how to work with it. So we learned how to break the systems and then also work with the new system. So that's what I bring. I'm so grateful for that, because I bring that to my clients, whether they be an individual starting out. Well, not really starting out. I usually work with clients who are hitting that ceiling of complexity that they want to grow, but they don't know what to do, to the client who has several agents or several employees that want to take it to the next level. So I know what they're going through, both from an owner perspective and also from I want to grow. I'm not sure what's next. How do I do this? And what's the risk and all of that? So I bring that confidence that, hey, listen, If I could get through all of that stuff, all those years, then you can too. So what else you got? So I don't think, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So what are some of those foundational systems? Like, what does that mean? Let's break down like the basics of that.
Sure. So some of the foundational systems really are, all right, the biggest one is, know what your finances are. And I realize finance and production. You said it earlier, a lot of the times our coaches aren't talking about the finances in a way that's going deep. And it's scary to actually look and see where you are, because we don't always like where we're at. And I say that too, because I'm still a business owner. But you really have to have a pulse on what's happening in your business. And also when things shift, they shift really fast, especially in the real estate industry, they shift very fast. So if you're operating based on your financials from a year ago, if you've actually prepared financials and not just taking your stuff to a CPA and said, figure it out, if you really are looking at your financials from a year ago, you're not going to be helped with a downturn or a shift in the market like we've experienced. So key is, your finances and your production. Where are you compared to last year? And then the question is, where are you compared to where you want to be? A lot of clients, they say they want to make X amount in GCI because that's what awards are given on, or the number of transactions. But what is it do you want to keep in your pocket? So I always say, know what your finances are and know what your production is, but also what is the bottom line? What are you putting in your pocket? That's important. And how is that going? So comparing. So that's one of the systems. The other one, obviously, is the people. You have to have the right people in the right place. And you also have to take care of those people. There's systems of retention. It's not just about the hiring process. It's about the retention, because you've got happy people. They will be with you for a long time, even as you grow. So there are people that I had with me for almost 20 years that started with us and were with us, and they grew with us. So not only is it hiring good people and having the right people with you, but it's also, are they willing to grow with you? Because as you grow, you change. Are they willing to change? We left some people behind because their vision wasn't the same as ours. So that's fine too. They didn't want to work for a company that big or that large, which is fine. We want happy people working with us. So that's another system. And then really knowing what you're about, like your leadership style, your management style, those kinds of things. Don't stop learning. Don't stop learning about how you are as a leader and how impactful your personality style can be on a company. So I think those are the biggest ones for me is, your financials and your production, the people. And then, yes, the underlying systems will come, but those are, if you have great people, you can implement great systems.
Right. Well, I love what you talked about the why and who you are at the company. When I started doing this work, I worked for a real estate business coach. I was studying corporate finance, right? Thought I was going to be an investment banker. And what fascinated me about real estate was how unique and different every single one of these little businesses are, and how the personality of the person at the top drives everything. And just from a study of human behavior, I found that fascinating. Now, as a recruiter, I find it equally fascinating, but also it can be quite frustrating when people don't really know what value they bring or who they are or what they stand for. The clients of mine who have a very clear vision and definition of who they are, their value prop, why they do what they do, they attract great people because those people can find their tribe, to find the people that are like them, right? So I have clients who are passionate about, building homes for humanity or, helping people invest in real estate. It doesn't matter what it is, but they have a very clear focus. They attract the people who are passionately excited to attach themselves to that vision. And,
Yes.
like, it's easy for us to say, hey, like, you should figure this stuff out. It's a journey, it's a process. It might change over time, but it's so valuable to take the time to figure that out and then shout it from the rooftops, because that's how you find those great hires.
Oh my gosh, you just brought up something, and it's funny because in front of me up on my bulletin board, I still have the 7 core values that I used to slide in front of every single new hire. And every single one of those still is mine. And so I understand what my core values are. And the only one that's not is being technologically the savvy company. Was it the striving to be on the leading edge? That's not mine, but that was my partner's.
Mhm.
My business partner, that was his. So these 7 items, these core values, every single interview that we did, including real estate agents, when we were recruiting them, we were listening for those people who were speaking those values. And it was really interesting because we would slide them right in front of people and say, well, what do you think about these? Or what do you feel about these? And it was interesting watching people. We could actually eliminate, like, some people we didn't hire because they're like, oh, those are nice. Well, no, they're not just nice. This is who we are. So you're right. I think understanding who we are, that attracts the people that resonate. Yes.
And then you get the retention. I want to go back to something you said about
Yes.
creating systems for retention. And I think in part of that, you meant helping people advance in their careers within your company. But are there other systems you put in place, maybe that had to do with performance reviews or recognition? Or what are some ideas people can glean on how to systematize their retention process?
Well, definitely you want to make sure that your communication is clear, consistent, and ongoing. And I think it goes back to knowing who you are and how you interact with your people. Some of the profile testing that we've done, I know you do the DISC profile, very active with that, but there are other items in the testing world or the profile world that will help you retain and consistently communicate with your people, knowing who they are and who you are and how you interact. I'll give you an example. In the Kersey-Bates or the Myers-Briggs, I'm a T, I'm a thinker. So when I would walk in the office, or when I walk in the office, I'm like focused, I'm going right down the hallway to get the job done. Now, other people can be the F, which is feeling. And those are the people that really need your attention or need you to stop and say, hey, how's it going this morning? Good morning, good morning, good morning. I don't need that. Usually I would look up and it was 10 o'clock in the morning and everybody was like already working in that. And I was like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. I should go say hello to my people, But if I didn't stop at a particular, certain people's office and say good morning, things were off. So I understood that me taking a minute or two and stopping and talking to these people would actually prepare the day and smooth the relationship. So that's one of the systems. The other one's definitely the reviews, but not the stamped reviews. I think it really needs to be well thought out. So those are systems. Retention, absolutely. Things have changed, especially now. It's no longer leaving everything at the door. I mean, in the last 18 months, there is no door. With Zoom and people working from home, we're in everybody's home. And so we've, knocked down some of those walls. And the thought that you have to leave everything at the door when you walk in, yes, it has merit, but no, it's not realistic. People are still, that we're more human. And as owners and bosses and supervisors, we need to take that into account, that we're all human, that we are having issues at home, or things are happening that are great at home. But, so the hard and fast rule of this is work, separation of work and home, I don't think exists anymore. And it did before, but it doesn't anymore.
Well, I mean, especially in real estate, if you're expecting your employees to be flexible on nights and weekends and take calls and all of that, that means you need to be flexible too. It really has to be a two-way street. And one of the things I want to talk about is how management expectations have changed. right? So if we think back to the model of the boss versus employees in the 80s and 90s,
Yes.
versus this new generation and what they expect. I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, where did all the employees go? Does nobody want to work anymore? The nature of work, people's expectations of work, I mean, everything is changing. So like, what is your advice on that? What do people need to be aware of if they're a manager of, Gen Z coming into the workforce now? What are their expectations?
Well, it's not an us versus them. I think that's I think the boss and the employee part created such an us versus them. It's us, it's all us. So I think that's really, really important. Sorry, I just lost track of the question.
That's okay.
I just kind of went off. So the question again.
Yeah. So the question was about what do we need to think about for managing Gen Z, or just their expectations?
Yeah, it's very different now, and I don't think it's necessarily generation. I don't necessarily think it's generational, and you can't pigeonhole people that way, because sometimes I feel like I'm thinking like Gen Z. I have clients who are Gen Z and that are all different ages. It all is about our not maturity, but more of a knowledge base. So I think throughout, the expectations for employees is that we collaborate, that they be seen as an individual, and that they be appreciated for their work, be really appreciated for their work, and appreciated for them being there and giving their skills. And I'm not talking about just dollars or saying, hey, great job, but for they expect, I think there's an underlying expectation that they will be appreciated in their currency of appreciation without knowing that that's what they expect. So as an owner or boss, I really want to know what my people's currency of appreciation is. So I'm not going to give a mom a, 4 tickets to a movie theater. If she's got toddlers, she's never going to go to a movie theater with 2 toddlers. But you could get her a massage or something like that. Knowing whether they're money motivated, does it help to, give them, financial, or do you put a sticky note on their computer that says, thank you, great job, those kinds of know your people. So I think, the expectation coming in is people be appreciated, that we're human, we're not just invisible workers behind the scenes. And it's funny, I'm listening to myself. I'm like a bridge, because I've been the employee and been the person behind the scenes, and I've also been the boss. So I can speak both languages, and I feel both. I understand what it's like over here as the owner, and then I also understand what it's like being the employee and wanting to be seen and appreciated.
Yeah.
So does that help?
Absolutely. I think absolutely. And I think because of the stressors we've all been under these past 18 months or so, this appreciation thing has really come to the forefront. People do need to feel appreciated. They need to be, not just make them feel appreciated, you need to appreciate them for everything that they're doing. I was listening to an episode of This American Life, which I love that podcast. Anyways, they were interviewing this McDonald's worker who was so annoyed with his boss. And again and again, it was about workers and how they're changing jobs and what's happening to the restaurant industry. Because, they were an essential worker, paid minimum wage, not given access to PPE, and then ignored by their bosses and treated horribly by their customers. And now you're wondering why nobody wants to show up for work.
Yeah, no kidding. Exactly.
That. And so many of them said, I just wanted to feel appreciated, just show up for me. I'm here showing up for you. So yeah. I think that's a really, really key one.
People want to be seen. I think that's the biggest thing, is people want to be seen. And how many times are we out and about? I mean, how many times are we out and about and we don't realize the person behind that escrow transaction, that transaction coordinator that nobody sees, that is a name at the bottom of the emails that you get? That's a person. That's somebody that is really committed to having this transaction work and appreciating that person. They may be behind the curtain, but their work is not.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we talked about appreciation, but let's also talk about the expectations about time and face time and what flexibility means, because that has changed a lot in the last 10 years, but it's sped up in the last 18 months.
Yeah, the access. And I was listening to one of your podcasts about time and attention and being on 24/7. So for the agent who is expecting an assistant or somebody to be on 24/7, I just don't think that that is appropriate anymore. I think having clear boundaries about the expectations about, look, I'm going to give you this separate cell phone, which I highly recommend that you give a separate cell phone to your assistant and turn it off at X time at an agreed upon time. Now, I can tell you, they'll probably check it just to make sure there's no emergencies, but have agreements for how, do they need to be available on the weekend? And on the weekend, when? And be open to, they have a family. If they have a birthday party to go to or an event or just need some downtime, honor that. I think having those boundaries, setting the boundaries together works really well, because you want your assistant, you want your team to be healthy and engaged. And when they're depleted and always, jumping every time, their phone goes off, it's just not going to work. They're going to get depleted. You're not going to get their best work. They're not going to give you their best work, even if they want to, if they're depleted. So setting boundaries is really important, and being flexible. I think we all still need to be flexible. I mean, we've seen how we've had to be flexible in the last 18 months. I mean, who would have thought that the working from home would become the norm? But we did it. We did it with technology. We did it with, just learning. So it can be done. I think there's still more changes to come in the industry with that, in flexibility, but I think it is important to be flexible on both sides. I don't want to say both sides, but both from the agent's perspective, the broker's perspective, and the employee's perspective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a two-way street, right? Things need to get done. They need to be committed to getting things done as well. But unfortunately, some employers, some agents just don't set boundaries. They don't set boundaries for their own life, and then they pull everybody else into that with them. And it doesn't have to be that way. You might have been listening to my interview with Stephen Ross. Stephen sets very clear boundaries. He doesn't work weekends. He doesn't work at night. He believes there's no such thing as a real estate emergency. If it's happening at 8 o'clock at night, there's nothing that can be done about it. It can be done and dealt with it the next morning. And he lives a very normal, healthy, balanced life. And he's not the only agent. I know plenty of agents who do that, and others who just choose not to. But if you choose not to, it's unreasonable to expect your assistant to live that same boundaryless lifestyle. You're just not going to be able to retain people, period. Okay, so I want to just kind of go back to something we were talking about earlier. If you could sit a new agent down on day one of their career and give them, 3 to 5 pieces of advice that would help them set their business up for success, what would you tell them?
So the first thing, obviously, I said the earlier one, is know your financials. Know your financials. Have a separate business checking account. Run it from the beginning. Run this like a business. If you treat it like a business, it is a business. So you have your personal life, you have your business life. It also makes taxes and write-offs much easier when everything's running through one account. And I know it takes a little bit more time, but if you do it now, it makes a big difference when you incorporate eventually. Then you can actually just move that, and you're not doing anything different. So that's number one, is treat it like a business. Number two, know who you are. I think that's the big one, is because it also impacts your clients. If you do the homework about knowing who you are, and how you impact your clients and your people. I think that's important. Obviously having great advisors, you're not going to do this on your own. Having great advisors from coaches, find out who the coaches are in your area, get recommendations from people that are like you or that, you admire. How did they get from here to here? Maybe have a mentor. Your broker can be that person too, but understand that their time is going to be limited depending on the size of their office. And it also depends on if you're an agent in a team and an agent that's coming in on your own. So on a team, definitely go to your team leader because they hired you. They want you to be part of their team and they're looking to you to fill part of that puzzle piece. But also know your numbers. Even if you're a buyer's agent, know your numbers, set your business up so it is a business. I think that's the biggest thing. I think those are the big ones for me.
Okay. So I also want to talk about before somebody is ready to hire, right? They think, oh my goodness, now I'm at this point. I have these basic things in place. I have QuickBooks. I have a bookkeeper. I'm watching my P&L every month. I know whether or not I'm on track to reach my sales goal and what those numbers are. So they're there, they're getting busy before they hire an assistant. What are some of the things they need to think about or understand about this new transition in their business? I love working with people who are making their first hire because it's such a big leap forward in their business. It's a huge deal. But there are some sort of foundational systems level things that they need to think about. So what are those?
Absolutely. It is a huge leap. I worked with several clients who have made that leap and now they're hiring more and more people, but the first time is scary. I mean, it was for me too. It's scary because it's all unknown. You literally are going into the unknown and it's a challenge. You're growing your leadership skills. You're growing your management skills. People say, no, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to be a leader. Well, guess what? You are. As soon as you raise your hand and say, I'm going to hire somebody, you have now said, I'm going to hire somebody and I'm going to learn how to be a leader and a manager so I can grow my business. That's what's not said. It's like, no, it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's something too, is understand that you are taking the risk, you are moving forward. The other parts is really when my clients talk about what they fear, because I have space for them to share their fear. It's like, well, what if there's a downturn and I can't pay somebody? Or what if I make the wrong hire? And there's all these other things like, what if they quit? All of those questions, like all the things that can happen, including hiring the really bad hire or the person that's with them for 20 years. Set up a savings account, set up 90 days worth of funding for, you can calculate it out, know what you're paying them, calculate it out, put it in a savings account, because as they say, what we do today will produce 90 days from now. So if there's a little bit of a lag, you can actually produce enough to pay them in 90 days. So there's a window there. So making sure that you have enough stored in reserves that you can keep them for 90 days, because in that 90 days, you're going to be able to communicate with your employee that, hey, things are getting a little tight. They're going to see the writing on the wall. I mean, when there's a downturn, within 60 days, there's writing on the wall. We know. And so they're not stupid. They know what's happening. You can make those changes and ease into it. The other thing is make sure you are compliant. Now more than ever, hiring somebody, you've got to know what is an employee, what is a contractor, all of those things. What kind of benefits are you going to be paying? All of those things you've got to know, or you have to have a resource or an advisor that will share that with you, because it can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars if you don't hire in the proper capacity. The W-2, 1099, I have people say, well, why can't I just write them a check? Or why can't I pay them cash? And okay, I realize that a lot of the MO of our real estate people and our entrepreneurs are, they'll take on risk. I just don't advise this risk. If they're classified as an employee, you are risking, like I said, thousands and thousands of dollars by incorrectly paying them by 1099. And I've seen it. I've gotten the call and they've said, hey, I let that person go. I was paying them on 1099 and they filed unemployment. Well, yeah, they just put the state on notice that you are incorrectly paying them. You're going to get audited. And so it's really hard to see for me to, I mean, as a consultant, I can only advise and tell you what could happen because I've seen it. So it's really hard to watch people write the check for that money. That's a penalty to the state or federal government, because it's not just the state, it's federal too. Because once one goes, then the other one. So really understanding how to pay people. Don't do your own payroll. Do not do your own payroll.
No.
There's
Please don't do your own
many.
payroll. I will put the link to my favorite payroll company, Gusto Payroll. I'll put that in the show notes. They're wonderful. They're easy to use. It's not expensive. Don't have your bookkeeper or accountant do it either, because they can mess things up. And also if they don't actually properly file your taxes, it can get really bad for you. So just use a payroll company. It's a simple thing.
I mean, when I said that I got thrown in the deep end, so that was the very first lesson that I learned when I got thrown in the deep end, when I took on being the COO of this company. Well, it's a family-owned company. We had bought out a partner. The partner had not paid workers' comp, nor had he paid, this was, years ago. They hadn't paid workers' comp, nor had they paid the payroll taxes.
Oh my gosh.
So I got a very fast lesson on how that all worked, and immediately put everybody on. We called paychecks immediately. And this was back in in 1989. I'm dating myself here, but it was like, you call paychecks. I got everybody on there, and no way would I ever have anybody not use a payroll service. And you're right. Don't have your accountant do it. I love accountants. I think there's a lot of great ones out there, but I've also seen where the accountant does your payroll and doesn't pay the taxes. And it doesn't matter who they are. You're still liable for it. You still have to pay it. Yeah. So don't make sure that works. That's being done. So,
right. So kind of going back to the fear of, oh my gosh, if I hire and something goes wrong, if you do the basic things correctly, if you pay them as a W-2 employee and you've put them on payroll and you've had them sign a proper, like, attorney approved offer letter, and you've paid them according to the terms of that letter, you're going to be fine.
Yes.
You're going to be okay. Absolutely. It's when you don't follow the rules, then something goes wrong, then it gets worse, and then you're in trouble. So if you just do these basic things, and I always, it's like, you got to put on your big boy business pants. You're now grown up, you have a business, you got to treat it like that. These are some of the basic things you do when you run a business. This is what I mean by the difference between being a real estate agent and being a real estate business owner. This is the difference. So I want to talk about defined benefit plans, because one of the issues that comes up, someone's been in real estate for a long time, they have a defined benefit plan, and now they want to hire an employee, and then they have this rude awakening of how much they're going to have to contribute to their employee's retirement account. So let's just kind of explain what that is, and then we can talk about how we get around that.
So I believe what you're talking about is when an agent has incorporated as an S corporation, and they're paying themselves, and they have a defined benefit. We saw this happening as soon as the S corporations came out. That was one of the challenges, is that if you have an S corporation, you're choosing to have it be passed through to you. And if you're paying yourself and have the benefits, then you're required for any employee, just like yourself, get the same benefits. I personally am not familiar with workarounds per se, but that is what happens. And so when a client is an S corporation that I'm working with, and they say, okay, I need to hire somebody, that's one of the first things that I say. If I'm doing their financials, I know they're an S corporation. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I want them to talk to their CPA about. This is exactly why you need to have good resources, good professional resources, to be able to ask these questions. Like, how do I get around that? You may not be able to get around it, and that's just part of it. So adjustments may need to be made for you personally. Yeah, I
Well, I
don't
would
know
say
how to work around that.
yeah, so the workaround that we use is using a PEO company, so a third party employer. It costs you a little bit more, especially if you're a small business with only one employee. But if you look at what
Yes.
you would have to contribute to their 401k versus the added payroll expense of having, so basically what this means is instead of the employee being employed by you, you're paying a third party to be their employer. So they are paying their payroll, they're administering benefits, they handle HR related things. So it gives you this very good level of liability protection. I mean, you're still their boss. So if you sexually harass
Right.
them, guess what? You're still
Yeah.
you're still in
Right.
trouble for that. So it
Right.
doesn't completely absolve you of all responsibility, but it takes off that level. So you pay a premium
Yes.
over their payroll to have somebody else handle it. If you're sharing an assistant with somebody else, this is also a really great way to make sure that they're
yeah.
paid by one check instead of two. And so you can both contribute to the PEO company and then have them handle it. So that's the way we get around it.
That's great. I know we have what we actually did that. We had a separate company created that we paid all of our employees through. So we've done that. It does take a little bit of extra work, but you're right. It creates a level of, so you actually get your people their benefits. I think people expect their benefits. I think that's a great idea. And their management agreement, having a good management agreement in place. So definitely that's a great idea. I did not realize that was still in place. So I'm going to use that for my clients too. So
good. All right. Glad I could help. One other thing I want to talk about is salary. So I'm kind of blown away sometimes by the salaries people think they should be allowed to pay somebody to do high level work. I mean, a licensed experienced real estate assistant in even the cheapest market in the United States, it should not be paid $15 an hour. That is not what that role is worth. In just to give people a perspective. So in Los Angeles right now, if you are a licensed transaction coordinator, you can easily earn over $100,000 a year in salary working for a company. Licensed experienced assistants, same, but starting salary is somewhere between 75,000 and up. Even in mid-level markets like Austin, places like that, we're talking 65,000 starting salary or more. So look, you're not going to get quality hires for subpar wages. It doesn't work that way. There's no such thing as a deal when it comes to hiring, unless you're offering some other something else. So for example, somebody might need a lot of flexibility, or they need to work part-time from home, and maybe they have some other side gig and you're willing to work around it. They might be willing to work for less in exchange for some other benefit. But if there isn't some other benefit, if you're expecting, 40 plus hours a week in the office and you need all these skills and all this experience, there's no such thing as a deal. Somebody else will pay them more than you, I promise. And you will then train them and then they will leave you. So get over that idea. You just need to pay better than what other people are offering. If you can't afford that, and certainly when you're looking for your first hire, that is a lot of money.
It is.
A great option is a virtual assistant. Right?
Yes.
So virtual assistants are a wonderful way to get started. We place people from the Philippines mostly, and you can get an experienced real estate assistant for $1,200 a month, $1,500 a month, full-time, wonderful employees, talented, smart, all of that. And that can relieve a lot of your stress and pressure. And actually, I'm really encouraging all of my clients who only have one assistant. Think about this. If you are one agent with one assistant, you have set yourself up for stress and headache and worry at some point in the future, because guess what? Someone's going to get sick. Someone's going to need to go on vacation. They could take another job, right? And so spending $1,000, $1,200 a month to have a full-time extra person who knows how things run is a no-brainer in my book. If you're at the point where you're busy and you have a full-time assistant, your next step should be to have backup virtual support.
Well, and also what comes with that, and as you're talking, I'm like thinking, yes, you need that person. And I've seen some of my clients have had the same virtual assistant for years. for years. And they talk about them like the person sitting in their office. And who knows where in the world they are, so that it is possible to find that person. And you're right, having just one person in your office, the system that's key is documenting the processes, document the systems. And I know it's tedious, but you make that part of their job. Document the systems is important. Even just, from having a list, like using LastPass as part of your password protection. Because what happens, and I hate to use the bus conversation, but what happens if one day your assistant cannot come into the office and you cannot talk to them?
Yeah.
Where are all your passwords? Where are all your systems? You don't have a temp hired that can walk in and work in your office or work with you. So making sure that you can at least give them something that's documented, like this is what we use for this system. This is our CRM. This is our, all these other things. Important to have some sort of backup and information process. So you're not in the middle of a lake without paddles,
Yeah, perfect. So before we wrap up, I want to sort of go through what we've talked about and sort of kind of put things in order. So the first thing is there's some basic systems, right? We need to know your numbers, right? So having a separate bank account, using a bookkeeper to give you a monthly P&L to see, did you make money this month or not? And where's your money going? Where are you relative to your goals? And, figuring out what your value proposition is and who you are, right? Step one. Mm-hmm. Then we want to talk about what was step two. So step two is thinking about leverage and what do you need to do before you hire? And like Jolene so wonderfully put it, like just follow the rules, pay your assistant as a W-2 employee, use a payroll company, be prepared to pay what it's going to cost to get the kind of help you need. There's no such thing as a deal, and set clear boundaries and expectations. Now, why I'm doing this is the next step is when you hire that person, one of the first things they should do is start to help you document your systems, right? Yes. It is so much easier to do this when you're learning versus I've sat in people's offices with the assistant who's been there for 10 years, trying to get them to stop and think, what are all the things they do during a listing? And get it up. They can't. It's all in their head. It's all like, well, of course you called Joe about the thing. And of course you did. It's just automatic. So why would they need to write it down?
It's in their fingers.
It's in their fingers.
It's in their keystrokes.
It's kind of too late. You have to have a third party come in and pull it out of them if you've done that. But if you get them while they're brand new and they're still learning who Joe is and why you call him about what thing, then you can get it all documented. And then the beautiful thing about having those systems documented, and when we say systems documented, we're talking about how do we move somebody through every stage of the transaction and how do we handle marketing? So how do we prep our agent for a listing presentation? What paperwork needs to go? What do we do when it comes back? How do we prepare a listing for market? How do we coordinate that? And then the transaction process. When you have this in place, as you get busier, right? And you talked about systems breaking. If you don't know what the system is, if you can't look at it, it's hard to know where it broke, isn't it?
Correct.
So,
totally.
When there's a slip up and there's a miscommunication, it's usually because it's in the handoff, right? The agent came back from the listing appointment and forgot to mention that they have dogs and an alarm or something, right? And then, so now we know we need an agent to fill out this form with these pieces of information. And then we need to train the agent to do that every single time. And then we can get it and then we can do it. So by creating these systems, you can then also pick out, okay, my talented executive assistant is really good at these things, and this is what's most important. Then it's very easy to see these are all the things that can be delegated to somebody else, right? And that's where the beauty of the VA comes in, because now you're getting the best dollar productive activity out of your lead person. And your lead person isn't doing things that someone else could be doing at a lower rate. Just like you should be doing dollar productive activities, so should your lead admin. And as you grow, that just kind of continues to happen, and things get divvied out based on talent, skill set, and and competencies.
And that can actually just be a simple spreadsheet. Literally, I had a boss back in the day that literally would move the duties around once a year. She literally would just list. Now, each line item had about 12 things under it, but each line item, became more apparent. You can move things off when you decide that you need to have a VA. That's right. You just take that little line and move it over here. Oh, they can do that. It creates capacity. And that's it. That's what it's about, is capacity. And as you grow, your org chart is going to change. What's the capacity of each one of those people?
Right.
So yeah, it's just a simple spreadsheet. Yeah.
And this is how you help your people grow, right? Yes. So you've hired an assistant. Now they're managing a VA. Now they're learning how to be a manager and a leader and a delegator as well. They're getting growth with you as you're growing. Now you have two people that you support, but you only have to manage one of them because your VA is responsible for managing the person under them. How cool is that? Because you don't need more people to manage as you grow. Ideally, you have your one person that you deal with, and then their job as they grow in their capacity is to delegate down your vision and your needs down to everybody else and filter up just what you need to hear up to the top.
Oh yeah, you do not want to be having everybody coming to you. And that's the difference, micromanaging versus the macromanaging.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
If you expect to know everything about, as you're growing, you kind of have to get used to not knowing everything that's happening in your office.
You do. You have to trust your people. So one of the things I love about my executive assistant is she has the pulse on everybody and what's going on, and people come to her. So if there's something I need to know, if somebody's upset or something happened or somebody just bought a house, like whatever, Liza knows all the things. And the things I need to know come up to me, but I don't need to be in the mix about all the things all the time. And I have no interest in being in the mix all the time. I know, but when you have really good people around you, then you don't have to be so in the weeds. And you can trust that you're going to get the information you need. Like she'll let me know, oh, morale's not good because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, great. Thank you. Now I can do something about it, but I don't have to be like in it all the time. And you don't have the mental capacity for that. Nobody does.
No.
Okay. So I want to talk about, oh yeah, go ahead.
I want to highlight one, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Go.
This is big here. Trust. The trust factor and the trust of you, of your people, and that trusted person that's going to be that conduit to everybody else, if you're that large, and also them to trust you. So that is that trusted relationship, because they're going to know who you are, and they're going to know everything pretty much about you, about your life, and you them. There has to be a have your back kind of relationship. Like, I got your back, and we're going to have tough conversations sometimes, but it's like we are both not quitting on the same day. And so it's some of those things where I know from my partner, my assistant, there were days when I'd walk in and say, okay, today I quit today, but I'll see you tomorrow. And the deal was, if I was having a bad day and it's the day that I said I'm out, then, it was her turn next time or his turn next time.
Yeah.
But having that trusted relationship is so important, and it's earned and it's over time. So just understand that for somebody to have your back like that, you really have to be able to trust them and them trust you.
Yeah. I love that. And you really have to be willing to communicate and open up. So one thing before we wrap up, I want to talk about the experience, if you've never had an executive assistant, of letting them into your world can be uncomfortable. I mean, I've had clients who are like, wait, they're going to know my calendar. Yeah, of course they're going to know. That's basic. And they're going to see my email. Yes, they're going to see your email. They're probably going to figure out exactly how much money you make and where you're spending it. And, they're going to know what's going on in your personal life. Like, they're going to know everything. So you better feel really comfortable with them and just realize you got to keep opening up. There are going to be some things that you hold back, but the more that they know, the better job they can do to help you. And if you, God forbid, got hit by a bus, your business will continue to run. My executive assistant knows where my trust is, knows how to access, like, who the emergency contact people are. My business would run. I could be in a coma for 3 months and it would be okay. Everything would be okay. My family would be okay. My business would be okay, because Liza knows everything,
Yes, exactly.
And what a wonderful peace of mind, right? So it is such a peace of mind, because when you have a business, when you have other people who are counting on you, and that you've grown this bigger life, and there's this sort of machine behind you that you're driving, it's a scary thought to think what would happen to all of these people and everything that I've built if I can't be around for, a week or, a month or God forbid longer. So it's so valuable to have that. And you have to open up. There's no way Liza could help me in those ways if I wasn't willing to bring her completely into my world. So with that thought, I think that kind of, hopefully that sort of sets the vision, the importance of having the right person in your office and all the things that they can do to support you so that you can create financial abundance and have freedom and flexibility, because you've built this partnership with someone who's, invested in you and your business as you are in their growth and success.
It's very gratifying. It really is gratifying when you grow alongside, you have some great people around you, and you look back and go, wow, we did that. What a great year. Let's celebrate. And it really is gratifying. It's just exceptional. I can't just totally explain or totally express what that feels like. So I wish that for everybody. And that's what I work with my clients for, is like how to get them to that place where they can take their vacation and know that their business will run. So yeah, you're right.
Jolene, thank you so much. It was so lovely to get to talk to you. And, if you're looking for help putting together your systems and figuring out how to set your business up for success, I'm going to include Jolene's information in the show notes. Definitely reach out to her. She's fantastic. And if you're ready for that first hire, whether that's a virtual assistant who is overseas or in the United States, or you're ready for a full-time hire or your next full-time hire, please reach out. I'd love to have a chat and see how we can help you do that. All right, Jolene, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much.